Hey everyone, it's been a while since I've done a video just kind of talking music in general. If you're Velocity's and music follower, you're obviously very familiar with me just kind of talking about music, but it's been a while and I got a lot of good records on Record Store Day a couple days ago in Des Moines and thought I'd share everything from my haul. So we'll go ahead and dive in. I'm very much a bargain buyer. I usually, when I'm going out record shopping, allow myself to splurge on like one or two more expensive records that I really want, and then I just try to find the best bargains that I can, fill in gaps in my collection, just whatever looks good to me. So I'll kind of split this up by the couple of new records that I bought, the few Record Store Day exclusives that I bought, and then all of the used records that I bought. Honestly, when I go out for Record Store Day, it's usually not specifically to get the Record Store Day exclusive albums. There's usually only one or two that I'm interested in, but I always just love having an excuse to go record shopping, looking for deals, and seeing what kind of used stuff I can get, because usually a lot of stores just put out their best inventory on Record Store Day. So let's go ahead and start. First off, one of the two non-Record Store Day exclusive new records I bought was Queens of the Stone Age's Rated R. This is my favorite Queens of the Stone Age album. Came out in 2000. I just love every track on this thing. This is one of those records that I've just had in my mind that the next time I see it, I'm going to buy it. And I did. I thought this was kind of interesting. It says, Rated R original album art, first ever vinyl pressing, 180-gram vinyl. And I was like, that can't be right. Like, is this really the first vinyl pressing? I looked it up. This is apparently from 2018, 2019, and I guess maybe it is. From what I could tell, a lot of the previous vinyl pressings were that Rated X red version of the record. This is just the regular Rated R blue version, so that's pretty cool. I didn't really feel the need to get the Rated X with the kind of different take on things and different material. I guess I'm kind of a purist in that standpoint. Next up is Oasis Be Here Now. This one is from 2016, remastered. I've heard some mixed things about this, but this is another album I really love, and I know that it kind of gets crapped on by the music community. People tend to favor Oasis's first two albums and then kind of forget about them. I actually really like that one as Oasis's third album. It is definitely very excessive, very kind of bloated. It's a long album with a lot of bells and whistles on it that maybe aren't necessary, but I think that the core songwriting is still really great. We'll see how the sound quality is on that one. I'm not sure. I've heard a lot of mixed things, but we'll see. Alright, so now we'll get into the four Record Store Day exclusive pressings that I bought. The first two being from the same band, Brainiac. This is a band that I've been increasingly obsessed with over the last 5 years or so. I really like the 3 LPs and the EP that they put out in the 90s before their vocalist died, Timmy Taylor. And it's a real tragedy because this was just a fantastic and unique rock band from the 90s. The first one I'll show, this is Attic Tapes. Apparently this is unreleased demos assembled by a member of the band, and so I guess you just hear some kind of early working versions of some of their stuff. I haven't listened to any of these yet, so I'm excited to dig in. And then the second one, Brainiac from Dayton, Ohio. This is, let's see, LP1, singles, covers, and never before released B-sides. And then LP2 is a previously unheard live show from 1996. So these are some cool artifacts for mega fans like me of this band. I'm just so fascinated by their sound and their songwriting process that these are the kind of behind-the-scenes things that I find really fascinating. Next Record Store Day exclusive that I got was Toots and the Maytals' Funky Kingston. I really wasn't actually looking for this one. I mean, it's an album that if I just found, I probably would have gotten anyways, but then I found out they were doing a Record Store Day exclusive pressing of it, and I happened to stumble upon it at one of the stores I went to. Of course, Toots Hibbert passed away last year, which is a real tragedy because he was a trailblazer in the reggae genre, and this album is just a reggae must-have. So I'm glad that I happened to stumble upon it. It was kind of an impulse buy wasn't high on my radar, but at the same time, it's just kind of an album I'd been wanting anyway. Alright, the last Record Store Day exclusive I got is this 20th anniversary reissue of M. Ward's End of Amnesia. This is M. Ward's second solo album, technically. I think the duet for guitars came out before this one. I always kind of think of this as being his first, just because I guess duet for guitars was never much on my radar. But it's a good album. Happy to have it. Trying to kind of complete my M. Ward collection, at least for the albums of his that I really like. Which kind of leads me to the next one on my finds, and this starts all the used records that I bought on Saturday, and that's M. Ward's Transfiguration of Vincent. This is the one that came after End of Amnesia. I have the two after that, Transistor Radio and Post-War. This is my favorite M. Ward record. I think it's just a fantastic indie rock, folk, singer-songwriter kind of blend. Beautifully written tunes with M. Ward's kind of nice, dry voice, and a lot of just kind of sporadic electric guitar and noise chunks in there that just make it really interesting to me. So this album actually, it came out in 2003. This was the first vinyl pressing in 2008 though. So it took about 5 years to get it on vinyl. This is on, I think it's Jealous Butcher Records. So kind of interesting, different label there for the vinyl pressing, but excited to have that one of my favorites. All right, now we're getting into some cool first pressings that I got. This one really blew my mind. Talking Heads, Speaking in Tongues. This has been burning a hole in my collection for years. I have now every other Talking Heads LP, studio LP that is, except for Naked, which I'm not in any particular hurry to get. I'd love to have it someday just because I'm a completist. I also need to get the two live albums. Name of this band is Talking Heads and Stop Making Sense. If I ever see those for a good price someday, I'll get those. This ended up being a really good deal because I found it in a used bin at a store that was offering for Record Store Day 25% off all of their used record prices. So this is a 1983 pressing, and it's really in pretty good shape besides this like hole that's punched out of the upper right corner. It frustrates me that people used to do that back in the day. But it's in pretty good shape. Like I said, 25% off, which I think in the end means I got it for like just over 20 bucks, which to me felt like a steal because anytime I've seen this record, it's always been new pressings and they're always like $30 to $35. So yeah, why wouldn't I get this one? That's great. We'll move on to XTC's English Settlement. As you can see on the sticker here, this is a first pressing, European UK pressing with the two LPs, the 2-disc version. You can see it's a little scuffed up in the packaging, but this is a really cool record, and this is definitely a version of this I'd want to have. There's some 1 LP versions that have several tracks removed, but I'm all about the double disc, keeping it in its full intact state. This album came out in 1982. It's kind of an interesting transition for XTC as they were moving out of a lot of like electric guitar focus of their early work and into some of the more lush, complex pop arrangements that really earmarked some of their 80s work. So really cool album from them. Excited to have this one. Kind of neat that it opens on the top here, and then you've got the band there on the sleeve, some lyrics and so on. Pretty cool packaging, happy to have that. Next up is Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Damn the Torpedoes. This is a classic album. To be honest, I've never been too big of a Tom Petty fan, but once again, this was in the used 25% off bin. Looked into it, and this is a 1979 pressing, and it's in really good shape. I don't know if you can tell too well in the video, but not too many scuffs or anything on the cover there, so happy to have it. Been meaning to give Tom Petty more of a chance, and I feel like this will probably motivate me to actually do that. Next up, another one from 1979. This is Bob Dylan's Slow Train Coming. This isn't one of my more favorite Bob Dylan records. Probably not many people would probably put this in their top 5 or so. But once again, the price was right. I'm looking for, just about all of the 60s and 70s Bob Dylan records, and I've got all of them from the 60s. So this felt like a good hole to fill. And my friend Eric that I went record shopping with over the weekend was actually telling me that Mark Knopfler of Dire Straits plays on this record, and I did not know that, so that's pretty neat. Next up, we've got Bruce Springsteen's The Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle. I always forget the name of this album because it is a mouthful. Bruce Springsteen is honestly another person I've never been a huge fan of, but this and Nebraska are actually my two favorite albums of his, and the two that actually really resonate with me a lot more than even like Born to Run or Born in the USA or you know, a lot of his more commercially successful and popular stuff. This was just like $3. It really brought me back to like 10 years ago when you could go to a record store and find used records for like $3 to $8 and just get a bunch of classics that way. You don't seem to see that anymore, and this was actually in decent shape. However, the joke is on me because it turns out I already had a copy of this, and it was the same 1980 pressing that I already had. So at least I'm only out a few dollars, but that's, you know, I've made that mistake before, and I'm bound to make it again. That just happens when you acquire so many records and forget and don't bother to check your list when you're shopping. So I should have double checked, but that's all right. This next one I'm really excited about. This is a new classic, Fiona Apple, Fetch the Bolt Cutters. I could not believe this. I found this in the same 25% off used bin that I was just telling you about on some of these previous records. This album, this thing is worthy of all of the hype that it's gotten. It just came out like a year ago. I told myself, next time I see that out shopping, because I hadn't been record shopping in almost 2 years, I was going to get it. Just whatever, wherever I saw it, whatever price, as long as it wasn't, you know, like $50 or something, I'm going to get it, because I think that this album's just a must-have. And with the 25% off, I was just floored that I found this. So super excited to listen to this on vinyl. Tremendous record from last year, one of the best. Next up is another classic. This is Van Halen's self-titled debut. This is a 2019 repressing from Europe, I believe. I think it's 2019. From what I've read, this apparently sounds really good. I haven't had a chance to put it on yet. I was just happy to find this album in any kind of format for a reasonable price. After the 25% off used, this ended up being like $12. I don't think I'm probably ever going to find this album for cheaper than that, so it seemed like a good opportunity to get it. So hopefully it sounds as good as people are saying. We'll see. This hasn't always... I should say, I know that this album means a lot to a lot of people. That's actually never been my experience with it. I've always just kind of thought it was all right, and I've respected Van Halen for what they did for rock music, but it's never really resonated with me. I gave it a listen again, just streamed it like sometime last winter, and I was like, you know what, I need to give this record more of a shot, so glad to find it for a good price and in good condition. This next one is another classic, Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti, and one of the only Led Zeppelin albums that I have left to get. Part of the reason I've held out on it for so long is because it's a double album, which naturally makes it more expensive. It's a Led Zeppelin album, which naturally makes it more expensive. And it's one of those that either when you find it used, it's still usually like $30+. And if you find a new pressing of it, then it's probably still like over $30. And for me, with old classic rock records like this, I tend to want to go with the older pressings. I tend not to buy new. So I was pretty happy to find this used. And it isn't a 1975 first pressing. This pressing is from 1978, so just a few years later. It is a little bit scuffed up, which is kind of disappointing, but the price was right, so I was happy to add it to my collection. Hopefully I can clean it up a bit and get it sounding good. Alright, this next one we're jumping ahead in the future a bit with Undun from the classic hip-hop group The Roots. I actually can't believe that this album is from 2011. It's already 10 years old. I remember when it came out, and it still, I mean, to me, this still feels like recent Roots to me. Just because they're a band that's been around so long, that was one of the first groups that really got me into hip-hop. I didn't like this album as much when it first came out, but I've revisited it since, and it's really grown on me. This is a concept album that tells the reverse chronological story of a man, so kind of from his dying moments and then going backwards to the beginning of his life, and kind of how he got to the end of his story. Really fascinating and poetic work from the Roots, just what you would expect from an all-star hip-hop group like them. So I'm excited to put this on again and have a good excuse to revisit it. Next is another classic that I just didn't have before, Zombies, Odessey, and Oracle. Psychedelic 60s, just terrific songs. I mean, heralded as one of the best albums of all time and worthy of that designation. Really great songs on here, really tremendous songwriting and forward-looking production and arrangements. So excited to have this. This is a repressing, I think, from like 2015, sometime around then. So not too old of a pressing, but you know, I was happy to get what I could find with that one. Next up is the Strokes Angles. I have the first 3 Strokes albums on vinyl, and so now I'm adding the 4th to my collection. This is not one of my more favorite Strokes albums. I know this one was really polarizing for fans. It has grown on me in recent years, but once again, I'm kind of a completist with bands that I really like, so now I'll have to find Come Down Machine and The New Abnormal. I actually really like Come Down Machine a lot. I like that one better than this one, and I might be in the minority on that. But still, this is a good record. There's some good tracks on here. I'm happy to have it. Next up is Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band Dustsucker. So the story behind this is, as it says on the cover here, the Captain's own tapes of the legendary Bat Chain Puller studio sessions, plus rare bonus tracks. So this is when he was recording Bat Chain Puller, and the short story is there was a lot of legal battles going on around the rights to the recordings, and some tracks from that got re-recorded and released as Shiny Beast Bat Chain Puller, but there was always this original Bat Chain Puller album that was kind of lost in time. This was released in like 2007, 2008, and I'm a Captain Beefheart nut, and I just want anything of his that I can find. I've got a lot of his records on vinyl, so this was kind of a cool artifact to find. I honestly didn't even know that it existed, but when I stumbled upon it, it looked really cool. It was a limited run of 1,000 albums on black vinyl, so you can see here it's got, it kind of tells me which number mine is, number 542 of 1,000. So eager to dig into that, maybe hear some different versions of some songs of his that I was already familiar with. All right, next up is Kings of Leon, Aha Shake Heartbreak, Kings of Leon's second album, my personal favorite of theirs. Honestly, their first 3 albums are really the only ones I ever come back to. They're a good band, not trying to be one of those hipsters that just loves to trash on the band's new stuff. But this one means a lot to me. Listened to it a lot when I was starting college, and just good kind of southern rock, indie rock, garage rock kind of stuff. The one thing that's a little bit frustrating to me about this is it's split on 2 discs. This album's only like 38 minutes long. I don't know why they felt the need to put it on 2 discs. I think that the style doesn't really lend itself to needing that for the sake of sound quality or anything. So just like 3 tracks on each side for an album like this where the songs are relatively short and you're going for kind of a raucous rock sound. I don't really get the point there. Kind of irritating, but still, this is one of my favorite albums. I've been wanting it for as long as I've been collecting records. Their album, Because of the Times, was actually one of the first records I bought when I started collecting records over 10 years ago. So it kind of feels like full circle for me right now, because those are the 2 that I kind of want to have the most. All right, next is another oldie, Marvin Gaye, In Our Lifetime. This is from 1981, and this is a 1981 pressing. It's the second to last album that Marvin Gaye released in his lifetime, and it's a really good one. He had a really solid run of albums there at the end of his life and at the end of his career. He ended strong, and this one is great. I'm excited to put it on. Last but not least, this is album Generic Flipper by Flipper. From 1982, I believe. This is the Foreman with Beards repressing from, I don't know, like 10 or 12 years ago. I've had mixed success with Foreman with Beards repressings, as from what I've read online, a lot of people have. This was actually kind of a blind buy. I'm not too familiar with this one. I'm mildly familiar with Flipper as a band, but my friend Edward that I was shopping with saw this. He's already got it, of course, because this is his kind of thing. And he was like, if you don't have this, you need to buy this. And I always will, if I'm record shopping with friends, you got to let your friends pressure you into at least one thing that you didn't know before. So that was that for this trip for me. So thanks for watching. This video was a little longer than I intended, but always fun to be talking music. Let me know what you found on Record Store Day 2021, June 12th. Let me know if you found anything exciting. Let me know which one of my finds you would be really excited about. Let me know which one you think I should listen to first, because I don't even know how I'm going to pick. Anyway, happy listening. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to catch up with you all soon. Thanks.